Welcome to another edition of Your Impact Attack. That's right, it's Your Impact Attack, and it is the second edition of the new year of 2024, but it is still, we're waiting for the first edition with any new content to bring you. Who the hell are we? Who are we to be bringing you new content? Well, I'm Jamie Williams, and with me as always, as I tag him through the screen, is Brandon. Tag team partner Brandon, what is going on?
Not a whole lot, man. When I think it was last week when they decided on Russo's brand on Channel Attitude to not do a Raw SmackDown review because it was a clip show. I was like, bro, have you been dealing with what we've been dealing with the last 3 months?
That's right. There's no one more professional than us here at the Hameen Media Group, at the Impact Attack, at the Next Level Wrestling Review. We'll be damned if you're not going to get a show from us just because you don't get a show from them. So, but that's, not to disparage anybody who may or may not own the platform. I totally understand not wanting to talk about. Like, Raw's been good for the past month, and I don't still want to do a show about it. Don't want to talk about it. You haven't seen me on any Monday Night Machismos for the PWC lately, and Raw's actually been a sterling program for the WWE, in my opinion. Even better than SmackDown lately, but but they somehow phone in a best of 2023 show, even with them, so that I don't know, some of their performers get the holidays off, get to spend it with their families. It's like, after a few minutes, how interesting is your family anyway, right? Like, couldn't you
Right.
just FaceTime them?
And plus, too, they've done this in the past. You record it the week before and air it on Christmas.
Yeah, come on. Like, or there was some exciting exciting live events on the 26th, and other things, like we could have possibly gotten some a little bit of house. You could have gave us literal house show footage, just to have something sprinkled in there. But you know what, we're not here, we lead by example. We don't have to run anybody else down. We don't have to waste the people's time. The C in the VBC, the chat is here. They are filing in slowly, and they are with us now. And Brandon, who has joined us so far, as everyone is still taking their seats here as the doors open?
Let's see who we got tonight. We got Lab Rat, Lizbeth, and Javi Uchida, and Retro Rocket Review. And I'm sure Mower will start coming in as we get this party going. Whoop, whoop.
Yes, it is a party.
We
Media
got
M5 is
we gotta make it one. Like, we don't have a choice. We gotta make it one.
no choice. If Media M5 is asleep, we better wake his ass up. You better have this shit. You better have set this shit up in the YouTube window. And our loud voices should be waking you up right about now. So, but yes, so yeah, that is the preamble. So, as far as wrestling news, I don't really know what's been going on. I guess TNA has been unveiling championships on social media. We could have gotten that on the TV show, but that's fine. We don't need to do that. Let's get on our Twitter and give Chris Sabin a new X Division championship.
Yeah, fun fact, Chris Sabin got his first X Division title in 2003. And it looks like Vet's frozen. Which I'm going to chalk up to my connection.
Maybe it's both of our connections. Who knows? We'll just have to soldier on and hope that everything gets sorted in post. But yeah, so what were you saying there, Brandon, a second ago?
Yeah, it's funny how you mentioned how Chris Sabin is the current X Division champion when he won his first title over 20 years ago in
20
2003.
years ago. That's right.
Yep. As a member of the group Sports Entertainment Extreme.
Hmm. Wow, that's a very interesting acronym right there. Uh, yeah. Well, again, um, we can thank the founder of the platform for such classic acronyms as TNA and SEX. Uh, and it's say what you will, but the company's still going to this day. So, um, it definitely didn't torpedo it from the outset. But here we
It
are.
has been confirmed that from 07 to 09, they were turning a profit.
That's right. Confirmed by Jeff Jarrett. Source citation needed from Jeff Jarrett. But
I mean, then the guy who has the access to the book said, "Yeah, we were making money."
yeah. Well, yeah, it's so the history of TNA is very interesting, and it's been the subject of a lot of sort of ridicule over the years. But the fact is that through multiple managements and ownerships and things that could have destroyed it from the outset, like one of the investors being exposed in some kind of a criminal fraud or something like that. I forget all the details of that, but
I think they said it was like number 2 to Enron. That kind of scandal.
right. So there was lots of things that TNA has survived like a cockroach, and by next week, not even next week, by later this week, it's going to be putting on another show, assuming the world doesn't end. So, um, congratulations to everybody there for keeping this thing going. And the only thing that's sort of
Ah, fuck, froze again. There we go.
motherfucker. There aren't as many people seeing TNA as they could be. Like that's the only negative thing in my eyes. There's definitely a lot of talent there, and I think that even at its worst, it still was better than some of this late era McMahon WWE stuff. They just didn't have the money. Um, I don't really think it holds a candle to this new Triple H stuff, but uh, we'll see what TNA does. We'll see if they bring anything that's actually different. They bring different title belts. We know that, but other than that, we're not sure.
Oh, we found out Top Dollar did in fact sign with them.
Oh, we did.
He did.
Oh,
He announced it. Yep.
I didn't know that.
AJ Francis.
That is indeed Top Dollar. Yeah. So that's one. You got any other news?
I think it was Grizzled Young Vets who have also officially signed with them as well.
Yes, that's right. Interesting. I guess will they make their debut at the pay-per-view coming up here? Hard to Kill.
We'll see.
Um,
Or maybe on the next Impact, if they decide to actually, make an Impact instead of grabbing random footage and going, oh, we can do a clip show out of this.
well, that's what I'm afraid is going to happen. Because if they're actually rebranding on the Hard to Kill thing, and that's the first new content, then that is going to be the day after, the day when Impact would air. So
one of the worst things they could do is to do another clip show right before the go home for Hard to Kill and their relaunch. Like, come on, guys.
Well, it's too late now. What's done is done, or what hasn't been done won't be done, or whatever. But we can definitely look forward to something on Thursday. It'll probably be like hard to kill preview or something stupid. It's going to be another show in the studio for sure.
Best of TNA Part 2.
Yeah, because they couldn't. Yeah, they couldn't fit it all into one. That's for sure. And as that's what we get ready to talk about, um, this was supposed to be the best of TNA. I don't know if it was literally the best of TNA. They picked some good clips. They had a lot to choose from. So, I mean, there's that. I didn't particularly think anything was a bad choice. Certainly an interesting choice on there. But we'll talk about that. Is there anything else we should cover before we sort of get into that? I really struggle to find anything noteworthy this week.
Now, this has just been one of the worst, like, underwhelming rebrands, relaunches ever. Like, we're TNA, we're back in 2 months, and we're not going to do shit to hype it up and make you excited for it.
Yeah. Or do they think they are hyping it up? Like, is this hyping it up in their view, in their estimation? Like, do they think that they're building anticipation by not giving it to us?
It's possible. I mean, they could think like looking at the way the wrestling bubble works, like I could see how in their minds they think like, oh, putting on all these different clip shows helps hype and build us up and kind of like does a soft reset for a relaunch. I could see them thinking that, but it doesn't. Not at all.
No, well, not for me, certainly. Um, but hey, it's kind of that, if a tree falls in the forest and no one is around type thing. Like if somebody hears, oh, TNA is coming back, and they tune in to the Impact time slot, which, yeah, right. But still, just hypothetically, like let's say they do that, and then they see an Impact clip show or whatever, then it's like, oh, well, I guess they're not TNA. So maybe they're not going to tune in to next week's clip show or the week after that's clip show because they're like, I guess they're not doing it. And then when they finally do rebrand to TNA, people have moved on with their lives. It's kind of like when you talk about, the ratings for other shows, like if you tune in to WWE and get a clip show, or the number is going to be lower the week after that. In this case, they weren't, but they also had The Rock on there. So even though it was a surprise, you can make the argument that, they bounce back from a record low number for a clip show to do, a much better rating. And you can credit The Rock, even though no one was supposed to know he was there. So how could you give him the credit? I guess the point is, I don't have a point. So,
well, in that case, there was a little bit of internet buzz in that on the afternoon when that picture of him at the Charger Stadium with him and Nick Khan surfaced, and people were like, "Oh, well, him and Nick Khan are together, and he's going to be in WWE." But as far as what that impact was, like, you can't really measure that. There's really no way to tell.
Right. Again, are the people on Twitter the people that are sitting down at USA Network at 8:00 in their homes to watch? Like, are those the same people? Maybe, maybe not. But yeah, that's a good point with that picture. And you could tell that people expected something. Because if you were actually watching it, there's a point where Jinder Mahal's standing out there, and then people just start looking toward the entranceway for like several seconds before The Rock's music hits. So they're all like expecting something. So that means that something was going on like over by the entrance, by the stage or whatever, and people were shuffling around, and then the crowd started looking. So they were probably anticipating it.
And the fact that the WWE has pulled stunts like this before, like, okay, Jinder's obviously bait for something. Who's coming out to interrupt him?
Yeah. Well, anyway, I guess we'll just have to wait and see what TNA strategy, what results it will yield for trying to hype us up way too early. Um, but nonetheless, what they're doing is they're giving us a clip show. So here's another clip show with Tom and Matt in the studio. At least it's the TNA branded studio now. Like they've got the logo up in the background. So we're not just Impact Wrestling anymore. We are TNA. And this is an episode of TNA Impact, which is good for us because we won't have to change the name of the show. It can still be the Impact Attack. But so now we're in the TNA studios. And they're kicking us off with in the best of TNA, and they're doing the very first match that TNA ever had. So we're going all the way back to June 19th, 2022. And you get this match. It is AJ Styles, Jerry Lynn, and Low Key versus the Flying Elvises. That's right. Flying Elvises, consisting of Jimmy Yang, Sonny Siaki, and Jorge Estrada. Good to see a young Jimmy Yang here before Brock Lesnar stole his redneck gimmick. But it seems like he was always a redneck because he was playing Elvis here too. So,
or you can go back even younger, pun intended.
Yeah. It was interesting seeing this for a few reasons. Number one, it's always crazy when you look back and see how young everybody looks. It really makes you feel old. Then it's also interesting because you see this match. I don't know about you watching this, but for me, when I saw this and it was over, the first thing I thought was like, I'm sorry, did I click on the AEW Dynamite tab accidentally?
Right.
Because this has completely informed the state of professional wrestling today, this match.
Right, like it was essentially a spot fest. Like, I mean, you had the Elvises trying to like stay in character, but it's like they had to get their shit in still.
Yeah. There was one transition spot where Jimmy Yang took a DDT and just like got up, like as if he had like rolled through it somehow, even though he got spiked. But he just got up and cut off AJ Styles and like tagged out. Like it was insane. It was almost like he was like, nah, we're not selling that. We gotta hurry up and go to the next spot. We're behind in time or something like that. Like I'd love to sell this beautiful DDT, but I gotta move to the next spot. We gotta hurry up. Like what? Ring General Jimmy Yang. Unbelievable, man. And I completely forgot anybody named Jorge Estrada existed. I definitely did not recall him, although I'm sure I knew who he was back then. And Sonny Siaki was a guy that it seemed like they were high on him. Like they was like, hey, we've got some guy of vague Islander ancestry here, so let's make him part of an Elvis faction. But after that, it was almost like they wanted to have their own, The Rock or whatever they had. What do you remember about Sonny Siaki of that time?
I thought that there was a lot of potential, and I thought he could have been a big time main event star. The problem was he tried way too hard to be The Rock.
Yeah,
like it was there, but it's like, no, be Sonny Siaki, not The Rock. Sonny Siaki can be a main event major player, just don't be The Rock.
Do you think that was a Russo thing? Like an influence, perhaps? Reason I ask is because if you remember, all of a sudden at some point Booker T started trying to be The Rock, or anybody that was like sort of around him in that era. Was that a coincidence, or was Russo just like trying to take some things that he knew were successful and maybe apply them to guys that he had?
I think it might have been a combination of both.
Combination of both. Media M5 says, that's the case here, saying Russo said it. So I'm not aware or I've forgotten that he's ever said that. But
I mean, like after Bash at the Beach, and you see Booker T coming out to the ring wearing $500 shirts. It's like, come on.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Now again, like there's obviously some pieces that very much worked and can be applied to different characters depending upon the character themselves. Like a Booker T wearing a $500 shirt, okay, that works. I can get with that. That makes sense. But then at the same time, Booker T needs to be Booker T on top of that and not The Rock. Like there's definitely some overlap that works, like with the $500 shirts,
Right.
but there's some points that don't.
Also, Rock isn't the first person to invent wearing an expensive shirt. So like that can definitely work for different people, but it wasn't just that. It was anybody that ever, tried to speak in the third person, or I mean, like they even had Juventud do it as a rib, not like he was really The Rock, but he was still stealing the catchphrase and everything because it was funny.
But at the same time, though, with Juventud, you knew it was like, okay, this is obviously a rib and a poking fun at him.
Sure. Here's the thing, though. This is like I don't agree with that philosophy in any sense. The same way when
I
go,
agree not to do with it blindly. There's like certain areas and aspects where okay, you can poke fun at this particular thing with this particular character, but Juventud making fun of The Rock was definitely not that, in my opinion.
No. I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about just in the sense of I would never go to a talent and say, "Hey, so and so is doing this. Why don't you do this?" Because if it doesn't occur to them, then it's not going to be natural to them. So
I agree with that.
Just
100%.
because, just because The Rock is a brown skinned guy and has a certain look and a certain attitude or whatever, I'm not going to say, hey, this is working for him, so you should do it because it'll work, because nobody falls for that kind of shit. Nobody thinks that doing a dollar store version of The Rock is going to be the same as The Rock. Just like when you go into Walmart and you see the Transmorphers DVD on the shelf, you don't really think like you're getting the Transformers Michael Bay movie. You know you're getting a knockoff Sci-Fi Channel piece of shit. And that's but nobody's you're buying it. If you're buying it at all, you're buying it to laugh at it. You're not buying it because you think it's Transformers and you're getting fooled, right? So
right.
You don't even want people to be considered as like the cheap version of something. You don't want the buzz to be that you're a knockoff of this or that, because no one in their right mind is fooled by knockoffs. So never be a knockoff. That's my attitude.
Yep. And a perfect example of between a knockoff and a parody, the best one I could think of is, it's off the top of my head, is Gilbert. Everybody knew and caught on immediately, okay, this guy's making fun of Goldberg. He's not trying to be a Goldberg, he's trying to be a knockoff. He's making fun of him. Like if Weird Al was writing wrestling and came up with a parody of a character, okay, Gilbert is something he would come up with.
Yeah, parodies are different. So well, anyway, the great Jimmy Yang actually gets a pin on AJ Styles in this match, so good for Jimmy Yang. His daughter's doing things in wrestling now, so the generations just keep on, it's time flies. Speaking of time flies, the next big moment that we have for TNA is Christian Cage's debut at Genesis 2005, and their clip is just Christian Cage walking out. That's enough of a moment in itself.
Man, what I remember most about this was like how this moment was kind of overshadowed because that was the exact same day that Eddie Guerrero died.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Wow. They didn't even put a date on it. They just said Genesis 05. So
yep, and I remember they showed a graphic that night of like, in loving memory, and then they opened the show.
That was rough. And so was so was this. And so does continue to be Christian Cage's run, because even now, everything he's doing in AEW is an embarrassment to his career and the company and his legacy. And he's just shitting the bed. Him and Edge together, teaming up once again to shit the bed all over professional wrestling airwaves. If you don't believe me, go watch their match from At World's End, where you can see such great things as the Nick Wayne table bounce and the Christian Cage sliding into position for a one-man concerto, even though he's supposed to be knocked out. Fuck both these guys. Fuck both these Canadian idiots.
I don't know who it was who said it, but like it said, like apparently whatever it is with AEW that drags down even the best workers to the lowest common denominator.
I would go the other way. I would say it exposes that they were never that good, and maybe the WWE's been covering for them for all this time. Let's see how many people can get covered for now that Kevin Dunn's not there.
That argument could absolutely be made because, how many agents that are actually backed by Vince McMahon and his authority and power would tell guys, no, you ain't doing that dumb shit.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Telling you. Well, anyway, here's another guy. On October 19th, 2006, Kurt Angle makes his debut with the catchphrase, "It's real. It's damn real," because it's true. It's as damn true as copyrighted. So, there you go. This is where I guess this was the thing, right? Wasn't this the same? Because they showed it kind of like in two parts, but it was the same night where he came out and faced off with Samoa Joe. Was that his actual debut?
I think it was No Surrender, the previous pay-per-view, that it was announced that he had debuted, and they did the thing where he pulled the thing up over his head and said, "It's real, it's damn real."
Was that at the end of the pay-per-view?
Yes,
like at the very end. Okay, because I kind of remember that.
Yeah, Jim Cornette made the announcement while also making an announcement that TNA is going to primetime on Thursdays.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So the next thing they show is where he faces off with Samoa Joe and headbutts him, and then they get into a brawl. And for some reason, Jeff Jarrett comes out and grabs the title belt and walks away. So even back in 2006, they're doing this. I'm stealing the title. Possession is 9/10 of the law.
To be fair, they had actually been doing a storyline where Samoa Joe actually took the belt from Jarrett because he said Jarrett's a paper champion and doesn't deserve to hold it. So basically, that's Jarrett basically being a slimy heel going, "Oh, hey, he's distracted. I'm going to grab it and run to sneak out the back."
So he stole his... He was the champion at the time?
Yes.
Oh, so he's not stealing the title. He's just getting it back.
Right. And Samoa Joe is basically being like, "You're a shitty champion. You don't deserve this. I'm taking it from you."
Yeah, that part I don't remember. But then again, I haven't been catching up on the TNA Plus app, which is now live. Have you had a chance to check out the TNA Plus app?
I will shortly for the next Impact Attack for sure.
Hey, don't hurt yourself, buddy. It's okay. You don't have to. I was just wondering. Retro Rocker Review says... Retro Rocker Review says Christian was so good in TNA, then Kurt Angle and the others noticed, hey, if he's doing well there, it'd be even better for them. Well, that's one way of looking at it. Another way of looking at it was Kurt Angle was on so many drugs that even the WWE was like, you need to get out of here before you become a big liability, and that's the only place he could work. But
I remember actually during that time there was a news story going around saying like if there's another guy who's like on watch who if he dies it'll be even bigger than Eddie Guerrero. And the rumor was always going around that it was Kurt Angle. And I have every reason to believe that, yes, it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you hear Kurt Angle talk about that period of his life, like he's fully disclosing, and taking responsibility for his, everything. So.
And credit to him for that.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he's better now and, maybe not physically better, but he's definitely... seems to be off the drugs and he's in a better mental place.
Way better state of mind. He's grown. He's become such a much better person than he was at that time.
Right. And as Medium 5 saying, many went to TNA due to the drug flexibility. Well, that's like a very oversimplified way of saying it. But I think what he means to say is that TNA was at a position where they had to balance star power versus liability. Like they had to take risks in order to get people, you know what I mean? Like to actually show up on their shows and try to draw an audience. Like even got, you know, whether it's Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, they had to get any names that they could. They had to, you know, take the WWE cast-offs and table scraps and everything like that because they were trying to gain a foothold and they were trying to turn that profit that you're saying that they turned from '07 to '09 or whatever. They knew that, like, yeah, these guys come with baggage, but we have to leverage that and try to get something out of it. We can't afford not to. You know, we can't be picky and choosy here. We've got to get stars at any cost. And, you know, that resulted in things like the infamous Jeff Hardy coming out being fucked up for a match or whatever. Like, you know, sometimes it didn't work out for him. Luckily, Kurt Angle did pretty well for TNA in general. Like he ran his own health into the ground, but, you know, for the most part, and there was always the drama with his wife and Jeff and all this other stuff, but for the most part, no disaster happened. So, you know, that part, it ended up working out for them, but they weren't really in a position to be judicious with their hires because they needed to make a name for themselves and try to compete and be a business.
Right. And for all the shit I heard about Kevin Nash and his time in TNA, like looking back on his entire run there, I'd say like he was more of a net gain for them than a net loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, and I have to throw the word allegedly in there. As Elizabeth reminds me, you always have to say allegedly.
Allegedly.
Yes. Yes, allegedly, yes. So anyway, yes, Kurt Angle, that was a moment for TNA. Yeah, it was a pretty good moment. Here's another moment, and I can only assume they included this not because it was really any good, but just because of the relevance of today. Because the next is the Battle of the Futures. Well, guys, the future is now, okay? On June 25th, 2003, Frankie Kazarian and Chris Sabin had a match.
Can I just say that this match of the futures was over 20 years ago, and both guys are still with the company. I just want to point that out.
Yes. Yes. This is, yeah, like I said, the future is now. Don't be surprised if we don't get this match on, you know, the first, you know, taping of TNA coming up here. We're just going to get a rematch of this, especially considering that Chris Sabin is the sitting X Division champion and Frankie Kazarian's betting on himself. So I'm sure he'd love to hold that title once again. So we may just get this rematch.
Isn't he a 10-time X Division champion now?
Yes. Hey, isn't X a Roman numeral for a 10?
Oh. That's deep, man. That's some pretty deep shit right there, bro.
That's right, baby. All right. Well, let's see if my prediction comes true that we see this match. As for this match they showed on the clip show, it was just like, okay, they were sitting there and they were talking on the commentary about just how young in the business Chris Sabin is. He's only like 2 years in at this point. You know, so he wasn't quite Goldberg yet, even though Goldberg was even Goldberg at 2 years into his career. I think at 2 years into Goldberg's career, he had already lost to Kevin Nash, you know, due to cattle prod. So, you know, he was already on the downswing. Yeah. So that's a little bit different, but, I will say that, what I noticed about this match, my note for this was the finish was a top rope Spanish fly from, I believe, Kazarian to Sabin, wasn't it? Yeah, I think it was that, right? Didn't Kazarian win this?
It's been a while since I've seen that match.
It should have only been a couple days. No, but yeah, so, well, look, whatever it was, they did this top rope Spanish fly. Yeah, it was Kazarian won. And Chris they landed like right next to the ropes, which is, effectively that's like damn near landing on the apron because there's no give in that section of the ring. They landed as close to the ropes as they could have from the top. So I have no doubt that Chris Sabin was fucked up and he didn't he didn't kick out. So at least it was the actual finish of the match. But but god damn it, I wouldn't be surprised if they had like 2 more minutes planned after that and they just couldn't do it. Because he was like, ow, ow, that's the finish, brother. Like that, because god damn it, if you go back and watch that, it fucking sucked. There was no bounce, there was no give. Top rope Spanish fly on the side of the ring. Ugh. You couldn't pay me enough. Well, actually, you could.
I want to bring up something Retro Rocket Review said about Paparazzi Productions. We talked about how Alex Shelley would bring his tripod and camera to the ring. That was one of their better creative ideas. I thought that like you could have got a lot of stuff out of that. And they did that. Like they actually had like them hired by James Mitchell and Abyss to track Christian and his wife to get in his head, which is I thought was a great storyline. They just could have utilized it a lot more like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's very interesting and untapped as far as like sports entertainment goes, because obviously I'm more of a fan of the sports aspect, but if you want to do these like out of ring, entertainment style skits, as long as you're thinking of a logical way why we're seeing it, then I'm all for that for variety's sake. Like if you're telling me that you've got these guys on their own getting this footage and then you explain why you're showing it on the broadcast, like, well, Alex Shelley has provided TNA with this, with this footage or whatever, and we're going to play that now, like you're giving yourself a reason why it's happening instead of just doing it on the show with no explanation. I think that right there, some of that stuff will just write itself into the show. And then you can actually give some sort of gravity and credence to like what you're doing. But most of the time when you see this kind of shit on wrestling, it's just like, oh, here it is for no reason. This is just the show now. We're just doing this skit. And there's no reason for the skit. So if you come up with reasons why you're showing the skit in the first place, not only does that take up more TV time, which you're obviously trying to stall and especially on a 3-hour Monday Night Raw, like you're clearly stalling for time with all your packages and recaps and other shit. But if you spend that time instead of like, instead of doing that, instead of being redundant, if you set up the sports entertainment packages and stuff like that with explanations and official looking, announcements and stuff like that, then, like think of like when they would go to like Sean Mooney or Mean Gene in the control center, like they show that little thing and then they could just say, okay, we've got this from so-and-so Paparazzi Productions. And then you go into this footage and then the announcers comment on the footage, like, just things like that make the show feel more alive, organic, and official and realistic.
Right. Like in 2006, like those Paparazzi Productions videos were some of the best stuff that TNA was doing at that time. Like, again, for example, like they were hired, like Shelley and Divine were essentially hired by James Mitchell and Abyss to stalk Christian and his wife and film them to get in Christian's head to fuck with him before his title match with Abyss. And then even led to Alex Shelley and Christian matches on the TV shows leading up to the pay-per-view. So it all made sense.
Yeah. In addition, you could also do things where Christian is upset with the company for showing that footage. You could turn that into a skit or a promo or whatever.
As he should be. He'd be like, what the fuck? Why are you showing this?
Right. It's the same way if you recorded a murder, say. Like Eric Young should be really mad that they played his murder on television. And he should have mentioned it when he joined the studio to talk with Tom about his career and some of his time there. It would have been very nice if he said, I didn't appreciate me being murdered. but I
Well, to
did
be
come back, so all's well that ends well.
right, to be fair, like he knew he was alive, so it's kind of like, okay, I'll let you air that because I know I'm still alive and coming back. So I'm gonna let Cody Deaner keep his like little sense of safety, and I'll get him when the time's right.
Right, in a wrestling match. I'll pin
Yeah,
his shoulders to the mat and get my revenge.
after you stabbed me in a prison.
Yeah. I'm going to hit you with a trash can lid. That'll teach you. A cookie sheet, you know? An eye for an eye. A cookie sheet for a stabbing.
Yeah, I'm not gonna wait for the opportunity where like you're alone by yourself and I can stab you right back. Nah, I'm gonna get you in a wrestling match.
Right. I'm not gonna stab you myself with a full camera crew and coverage and music and effects and everything, and then ride off on a motorcycle. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna get you in a wrestling match, brother.
I'm gonna you're gonna stab me. I'm gonna completely film my survival just to throw it right back in your face, going, "Ha ha, motherfucker, you didn't get me."
It's good that Diener's camera crew didn't leave the scene, otherwise they would have missed that resurrection. Why wasn't this on the best of TNA? Oh yeah, because it didn't. This was an Impact thing. Yeah, that's right. That makes sense. Well, it didn't make the best of Impact either. So, yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep.
Before we completely move on from that kind of stuff, I will like to say that I do think it was a high point of TNA. Whenever the moment was that there was a match that Kevin Nash was in with a midget and he sat down on a folding chair to deliver a big boot. I do think that was probably the best thing to come out of that entire run.
A three-sided
everything
ring,
all included.
Three-sided ring against Samoan Joe.
Yep. That was probably the best thing I ever saw. But in a more realistic sense, one of the best things I saw in TNA, they definitely included it here. This was from Turning Point 07. And this was the Awesome Kong versus Gail Kim match. So
I would say this was one of the matches that put American women's wrestling on the map.
That's right. Certainly more so than it had been in a long, long time.
For all the talk that like the WWE gets for their women's division, like, no, dude. 07, 08 TNA was the foundation of modern American women's wrestling. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, is anybody out there trying to dispute that? I mean, we can invite them on the show and shout them down if that's the case. But yeah. And it was just, I mean, what else what are we going to say now in 2024 that hasn't already been said about this match, this feud, these two? Just like everything you just said, is not really much to add to it. And if you didn't get a chance to see it, it's definitely worth seeking out. But definitely one of the high points of this era of TNA for me was Awesome Kong. So Major Guns might dispute that. Did she ever even have a match? Or did she just walk out there with her tits out?
Oh, she had that ROTC match with Miss Hancock at Bash at the Beach, 2000.
I stand corrected. All right, so it's
ROTC
match, then Kim and Kong, and then probably something with Alundra Blaze or Fabulous Moolah somewhere in there. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so the interesting part of this, though, this is the part I didn't remember because I hadn't seen this in so long, but they did a DQ finish here where the referee was trying to get Kong to break on chokehold. She was basically just choking Kim in the corner with her foot and everything and just blatantly breaking the rules, and the referee tried to get in between, and then she ended up pie facing the ref, which in turn forced him to disqualify her, which in turn caused her to give him a sit-out powerbomb. So not a satisfactory finish for the fans per se, but
for the story, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, one of the better like uses of a DQ finish. Like a lot of times in the late 90s, people were using DQ finishes all the time to sort of, protect certain people. And this was a way to protect Kong, but also it's something that, if we're supposed to believe that Awesome Kong is some like out of control savage or whatever, like, yeah, she probably wouldn't care about the rules as much and would probably go a little bit rogue here. So
Right, like
it does make sense for the character too.
right, like a finish like this, in my opinion, feels like something you would see on like on the main event of free TV, which would lead to a cage match on pay-per-view.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, it's a good way to set up a return. You want to see, how can you, now it's like, now what they do in wrestling is often they set up they set up a future match by having a gimmick match to start. Like it's like they're working backwards. They do the gimmick stipulation matches and then they build to a regular match. It's like we've already seen a cage match and a ladder match. By the time we get a regular match, it's working backwards here, guys. That's not how we do it.
I'm a plumber. Okay, I guess we're doing this backwards. What do you do for a living? If you've heard Mitch Hedberg's last album, you completely get that joke.
Yeah. Well, I haven't. I better go listen to it right after this.
Dude, like that was his best album. Like that was one of the things I loved about Mitch Hedberg was like each subsequent album he got better.
Right. And that's what you're supposed to do, You're supposed to polish your act and tighten it up, and you eliminate stuff that doesn't work, you improve upon stuff that does work, and that's a good analogy for wrestling as well. Like you try stuff early in your career when you're trying to get over, and then once you're over, you accentuate the things that have worked and get rid of the stuff that you don't need, usually in regards to like your overall health and well-being. You don't do as many crazy things because you're already over now.
Right, like the perfect example with Mitch Hedberg is like his first album, he uses his stage fright and nervousness as part of his act. By his third album, he makes a complete improvised bit off of a heckler in the crowd.
Yeah. Yeah, gone way too soon, Mitch Hedberg, man. What a tragedy. Chris Windland has a random question for tonight. He asks, what were a couple of your favorite moments during the Impact era of what is now once again TNA wrestling?
Probably for me, when Scott Steiner came back to be Eli Drake's partner.
Really? That was a big moment for you, huh?
Anytime you get to see Scott Steiner on screen, get on the microphone, that's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose that's true. I was always worried that he was going to fall over, but I mean...
Well, and to be fair, a few years ago, he actually did almost, die backstage during an Impact taping. So that's not a completely irrational fear.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, as for me, let me think. A lot of moments run together. And a lot of Impact Wrestling's run has been embarrassing. But I would say that, not so much like moments, but, just getting to see the evolution of Moose to the degree that we have has really, I think I was really able to appreciate what he's done since, his Ring of Honor days. He had a full football career before transitioning to wrestling, so he kind of got into it relatively late. You could tell that he's always a fan because of how well his aptitude has shown his progression, but nonetheless, not only just his in-ring progress, but like now if you're looking at him and his getting in ridiculous shape for this Hard to Kill coming up, Just it's been a privilege to just watch Moose and root for Moose, see how he's, evolved on the microphone. He's, again, like talking about Mitch Hedberg, he's stripped things down to, oh yeah, Liz says, it was Gallo and Anderson. You could admit it. It's okay. That's right. I was thinking that there were a lot of chin locks missing in wrestling, and then they were able to come back and really re-inspire my love of chin locks.
The devil.
That's just how you know it's time for a nap. But anyway, yeah, Moose. I like naming this show the Moose. I liked the fact that Moose is still sitting in the corner up there with Ben Amin. I like, I've just really enjoyed Moose in general. And I look forward to what he can do in 2024 and beyond. If the company puts themselves, if they give themselves over to his broad shoulders and lets him carry them, I think that maybe they can make a little bit of waves, but we'll see.
I have to believe he's getting the belt at Hard to Kill. Like, you're rebranding. You have Alex Shelley, who's been a champion since what, the summer? Like, yeah. And you want to start things on a new foot. It has to be Moose. It has to be Moose getting the belt.
It has to be. You also think of the long-term contract, the fact that he's getting in shape ahead of time, like all these things, like it's time. It's time. This should be his year. And his first run or his last run, however you want to say it, not good. Not really good. Not his fault. Just not good. And speaking of that, like as another, like if you want to narrow it down to a specific moment when I was the most proud of Moose, it's not going to be on anybody's list of, highlights or great moments or anything like that. But I think it would be on yours and my list, is that match he had on TV with Kevin Knight. Because that was a match where you really saw just how good he was in a modern wrestling match that would stand up against any wrestling match, but no one's going to talk about it because it just was a seemingly throwaway match. But for workers, when we're watching that, we saw the storytelling and the psychology and everything that you just wouldn't get from just any ex-football playing wrestler.
He essentially made like a jobber, a nobody, look like a somebody.
Yep. While still, I wouldn't say he gave him too much. I wouldn't say he lost anything himself. It was just about the perfect match. Moose wrestled the perfect match on television, and no one will ever talk about it. No one will ever remember it except for us. Because most people, if they even saw it, didn't know what they were looking at exactly. But that's how you do a modern match, where you had all the stuff that people do today, but in a way that made sense, in a match that had a story. It told a story, even though it was a cold match. I mean, I was really proud of Moose there because it was like, not only just the looks, which is 90% of pro wrestling anyway, is just the look and the presentation, which he does have, but also now it shows that he's got the psychology and he can work. So definitely that was a highlight for me. So if that answers Chris Winland's question, then I would choose that. Moose versus Kevin Knight from some point in 2023.
He got a guy over while going over. That tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, it's a lost art. It's a lost art. And maybe there was some agent who laid that out for him. Whatever. The point is, he still had to go out there and pull it off. I've seen plenty of people that couldn't pull off their match, that they were given. So
right. And you can say like it was the agents all day long, but you can hand that recipe to 100 different guys. Nobody's going to produce the result that Moose did.
Yep. That's true. So yeah, Moose. But we transitioned from Moose to Wrestle Kingdom 2009, which is Well, we don't transition from Moose because Moose wasn't anywhere on this episode. I just want to make that clear in case anybody was confused. We were just going off on a Moose tangent, but in
Because
fact,
Moose.
he was not on the show. Yeah, as evidenced by Brandon's title there. Uh, Wrestle Kingdom is relevant this time of the year because Wrestle Kingdom 18 just took place this past January 4th. Which saw lots of interesting matches. I think more notably for our show in particular, we saw a singles match between Yuya Uemura and Yota Tsuji, who are like sort of the rival young lions that went on excursion at the same time and whatever. So now it's like, who's the best of this generation? So they faced off, and Uemura picked up a big win at Wrestle Kingdom in a singles match, which is kind of rare. If you historically look at Wrestle Kingdom, and like in this match we're about to talk about, a lot of the matches in the past have been like multi-man type matches just to get people on the card, just to kind of highlight everybody. And New Japan matches are pretty good at having like 6 and 8 mans, but they still kind of highlight the individuals. Like they all kind of, if you paid a ticket to see somebody, you'll probably get to see your greatest hits or whatever you want to see from them in these matches. So in general, that's the way they've done it. In recent years, Wrestle Kingdom has moved to a more traditional card that's got a good variety of types of matches and stuff like that. It used to just be straight up 8 mans all night, but big singles match for Yuya Uemura. And even though he's got like a slightly different, presentation, he's still the same guy that we saw in Impact. He's still doing the most basics of things. He has not added one exciting thing to his repertoire. He's just doing drop kicks, arm drags, hip tosses, and selling. And it's kind of like a bygone, presentation of a babyface. And he's joined the Just Five Guys faction, but he's just out there doing the basics, and he got a win. So congratulations to him for a big win and a big spotlighted match.
Man, I see big things happening for him. Like it's just kind of a track record of like, okay, the guys that New Japan sends over to TNA always end up coming back and doing big things. I mean, Okada, Sonata, Uemura, and he's already put in Sonata's faction. So
Tanahashi. Even Tanahashi. Look at them now. Okada, greatest wrestler alive. Tanahashi, president of New Japan for a shoot. Sonata was in the main event at Wrestle Kingdom as the champion. So, like,
who knows where Uemura is going?
That's right. The future is now.
In 5 years from now, he could be the champion. Who knows?
That was their version at Wrestle Kingdom this year. That was their version of a battle of the futures. It was Tsuji versus Uemura. So we'll see we'll see if they're still doing it 20 years later too, But on this Wrestle Kingdom, which would have been, I think, Wrestle Kingdom 3, I believe that would be the numbering if we're looking at it, but it took place in 2009. And they call it like a Legends match if you look it up on Wikipedia. But it was Kurt Angle.
And if you look at the roster, like you could easily say it was like a Legends match at that period of time.
Yes. This match would be Kurt Angle, Kevin Nash, Ricky Choshu, which is like that'd be like the equivalent of having like a Hulk Hogan on your team or something, I guess, for them. And Masahiro Chono, which would be like the equivalent of having a Masahiro Chono on your team, versus.
Man, Chono is one of those guys I'm surprised did not get over more in the U.S. Like I thought he had all the tools to be a big star over here.
Yeah. Well, I guess it was really just, it came down to availability, because as big a star as he could have been here, that's why New Japan wanted him. So he was really only here to promote New Japan. But joining the NWO and being like a representative of that faction over there, which led to, when WCW guys would go over, now it's like a big deal. Them they're getting the rub from him. He's getting the rub from them, depending on what country they're in. So it was good interpromotional promotion, I guess, for lack of a better word. And it's exciting to see a return to some of that nowadays because these promotions are all working with each other. And New Japan may be kind of tied up with AEW in some respects, as well as Impact Wrestling, obviously, because we're going to see Okada in the tapings at Hard to Kill, and he's going to be facing off against Moose. Go figure. But so you got that, but then you've also got recently with, NXT, William Regal's son, Charlie Dempsey, is working. He went and worked All Japan at one of their shows this recently. So now Triple H, as a wrestling fan, much more interested in the idea of old school talent, exchanges and things like that, and open to working with other companies. And there were rumors that TNA would be having a working relationship with the WWE. And just because those rumors have been disputed does not mean that it may not come true in the future. Perhaps the rumors started the wheels in motion for it to happen later, when maybe it wouldn't have. So it's an interesting time now with Triple H at the helm to see where wrestling will go in terms of interpromotional exchanges and everything like that.
For sure, absolutely.
So anyway, in this, sorry.
But it's just at the end of the day, though, it's Ari Emanuel and Endeavor who are making the final calls, and it's where they want to go. Which I'm sure Triple H has his ideas of where he wants to go and is trying to influence it in that direction.
Right. Well, hopefully they'll defer to the more experienced, person in that regard. But anyway, so back to this match. So it was Angle, Nash, Choshu, and Chono versus Giant Bernard, who you guys would know as Albert, I guess. Tomohiro Ishii. Yeah, Tensai. Tomohiro Ishii with hair. Carl Anderson. And Takashi Iizuka. So
I actually remember when this event originally aired, and there was a video clip of Nash and Angle arriving by limo, and Choshu and
Chono
are there to greet them, and Chono does the wolf pack thing with Nash, all right, they haven't forgotten their connection. So I thought was pretty cool.
Right. Yeah, that was that's probably probably a lot of people didn't have it in their memory that Kevin Nash has worked at Wrestle Kingdom, because we didn't start hearing about Wrestle Kingdom very much in the States until about 9 years ago, when they made a more concerted push to air it in the United States on pay-per-view. So but yeah, it happened. And I believe Angle gets the win here with an ankle lock on Carl Anderson. So good stuff. Interesting. And in the middle of this show full of TNA highlights, and then you watch a New Japan produced match, it's the difference is night and day in terms of the professionalism and the quality of it. Even just watching this 8-man tag, you're just God damn, this looks like a real wrestling promotion out here. So,
well, to be fair, they also have their air, probably, was it from the Tokyo Dome, with all the production values compared to Universal Studios, where they used to air Guts.
Right. Hey, don't skimp on Guts. They had good production as well. But I mean, even though it was a Tokyo Dome show, but even if you look at their house shows in the small farm towns and stuff, they still have a higher level of production than TNA ever did or could. Especially today, they'll just be in some random gymnasium in the middle of nowhere, and they'll have a higher quality broadcast than Impact Wrestling does, and with less audio issues. And Retrography says, I was surprised as I do not recall seeing Albert on TNA at Spike TV. No, he wasn't. He was working in New Japan. That's why you saw him in this match. I don't think he was ever part of TNA. If he wasn't working in WWE, which he's now the head coach at the Performance Center, But back then, when he wasn't working there, he was working in Japan as Giant Bernard. So
Yeah, I think like the whole like they explained the Tensai gimmick as he used to be a wrestler here in the WWE, went to Japan and got better, and now he's back.
mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I mean, quote unquote better, but yes, better. Better enough. He was able to supplant the great Hugh Morris as the head trainer.
Man, I remember hearing this. I never watched the matches, but I heard about how him and Tomko were actually a pretty dominant tag team.
Yeah, I never watched the matches either. And I'm not going to. So yeah. All right. Well, we are moving on to Victory Road 2010. Motor City.
Why not Victory Road 2011 in that awesome main event?
We'll talk about that in a second. But this was the Motor City Machine Guns versus Beer Money. And they did a finish where like it was like Earl Hebner and his son Brian Hebner were like the referees in this match, and they counted a double pin and had to restart the match. And I don't even remember who won. Did the Machine Guns win? Like, who cares? What does it? Was this for a title? I don't even remember.
I don't remember if this either was the finale of the best of 5 between Boner City Machine Guns and Beer Money, or the kickoff to the best of 5 series between them.
It was probably just an accident, but it sounded like you said Boner City Machine Guns, and I think I like that team name better. Yeah, well, whatever, who cares? So the main event for Victory Road 2011, what was that?
I think that was a match that lasted, I think it was less than 2 minutes after Eric Bischoff had to walk out and call audible and tell Sting, hey, shoot, pin him, he's too fucked up.
Ah, yes. That infamous, the great Jeff Hardy. Yes. Yeah.
Which
I will see that not making this show.
Which I will give TNA credit for, at least as far as an on-screen and creative way. They handled that the best they could have.
I suppose, yeah. Other than everything leading up to it that let him actually go out there.
Right. Of course, you can blame that on Dixie, though.
Can we? I mean, there was a whole locker room full of people and everybody that knew him that saw him all day up to that point.
Oh, dude, there was a story of like I think it was Turning Point 2010 where he showed up and Russo was like, okay, he looks kind of fucked up. Hey, D'Lo, go talk to him. D'Lo comes back going, yeah, he's too fucked up. He can't wrestle. Russo goes to Dixie. And the report goes around, they even had a replacement match set up where it was going to be Morgan versus Kennedy versus Jarrett in a 3-way for a vacant title. And Russo goes to Dixie and goes, yeah, Jeff's too fucked up. He can't wrestle. Dixie goes, well, I'll go talk to Jeff and see for myself. And she comes back going, oh, no, he's fine. He's just jet lagged. He's tired. He's fine.
Well, in any case, there's some times where you might even have to just overrule the boss, you know? So I'm not going to let anybody make any excuses. If I were in those positions and some, I don't care if you are the money or not, you're not going to come and tell me what to do with my health and well-being or the health and well-being of, my fellow wrestling brothers. Sorry, you're going to get a promo cut on you. I don't care. What are you going to shut TNA down? Fuck out of here. Of course you're not. Anyway, you just have to know how to deal with management sometimes. All right, well, looks like there's been enough talk. It's time for the main event. And the main event of this clip show is, of course, the one match of TNA that everybody always talks about from Unbreakable 2005. It is the 3-way match with AJ, CD, and Samoa Joe. Again, much like the Kong and Kim feud and match, like everybody said everything about this match, about it being great. I tried to watch it again with a critical eye, but I just tuned out because everything after this for the next 20 years has just burned me out of seeing this kind of shit. I don't even know if this is good anymore. I don't know if this is a good match. I really don't. I don't like three ways to begin with. So that's number one. Number two, it's hard to take my brain and recontextualize this as being like a forerunner to a lot of matches that followed it. So if you tell me this is the greatest three-way of all time, I can't really argue with you because I don't like any three-ways, wrestling matches. And I can't necessarily tear it apart because the guys like work their ass off to have an exciting match. So like I'm kind of in limbo here with this, but what about you? Like, what was your memory of this match, and then what do you think about it today?
I mean, for what it was at the time, I thought it was definitely different and kind of groundbreaking, but at the same time, also in the wrong ways. Like there was a spot in there where I want to say Samoa Joe monkey flipped AJ Styles and he turned it into a Hurricane Rana on Christopher Daniels, where to me, where it was like, okay, this looks like very clearly choreographed instead of like in the moment organic. Like that spot you had to have clearly called in the back instead of it being something that just happened to happen and the circumstances were there for it to happen.
Yeah, I can understand that, you want to have at least a couple of things. That was probably meticulously laid out too, so it was probably even more obvious, but how else can you do that? Like it's not, like we talk about it's a lost art to call matches in the ring. You can't call a three-way match in the ring. You can't call a four-way match in the ring. I mean, you can, but it's extremely difficult. And it wouldn't look anything like what these matches end up looking like.
Right. And to me, and this is just my opinion, like the blueprint of how all matches should be laid out and structured, and just like the whole idea of how you build and put together a match is Brett and Bulldog at SummerSlam 92, of where you have like you call it on the fly, but you have specific spots and things you want to get in like laid out in advance in the back, and then you call those specific spots on the fly at the right time when it's, organically, when it's like, okay, now we know this is the time to put this in there. Or as the match progresses, you feel like, maybe this spot doesn't fit into the match. We're going to cut this out. And you got to be able to make those decisions on the fly.
That's true. And the way you get to that point is by having hundreds and hundreds of matches. Like Bret Hart has done things over his career that he could just, even the stuff just with the Bulldog alone, whether it was tag team matches or any of the other times, maybe back in Stampede or whatever, he'll just remember stuff that they've done and he can plug that in because he remembers it and because they've done it and because it's worked. So it's, even when you're calling it on the fly, you're not necessarily calling it completely on the fly. You're remembering stuff that you've done that worked because of your experience. That's right. And how it ends up working.
And you know that at this specific moment in time, in this specific match, in front of this specific crowd, it kind of clicks in your head, okay, doing this now, right now, will work and make sense.
Right. Well, that's what makes Bret Hart probably the greatest to ever do it. And that's what makes these three guys in this match pretty good. Like they're, but if Bret Hart had to be in a bunch of three ways or whatever, he would still have to kind of have a match this way. Like he'd have to lay stuff out necessarily just because you can't do it like you always do it. So regardless, like I said, the guys delivered. It was an exciting match. I just can't, like, my brain can't grade it. Like I can't, it necessarily tries to shut off. Like when I'm watching it, it's like power down. And I'm like, no, emergency power. I got to watch this. I got to try to understand 20 years after the fact. I got to understand. Why do people like this so much? It's tough.
The only match in TNA history to get 5 stars from Dave Meltzer.
Yeah. Well, good for them. Everybody aspiring to the 5-star rating.
Or as EC3 calls it, the nickel.
The nickel. Bet EC3's never got a nickel.
He has. He actually has. He was, I think it was like some kind of ladder match in NXT.
What the I guess that's true. I mean,
Yeah,
I saw that match, whatever it was. Had like Velveteen Dream and Ricochet and probably Johnny Gargano or something. Yeah.
Johnny Gargano's got fantastic abs.
Yeah, it's easy to do when you have no body fat because you're skinny.
No, for real though, like that dude's metabolism is something to be envious of.
Well, he's not a human. I think he's like if you look in his cold black eyes, like he has to have part shark. Like he's got to have some shark DNA somewhere in there. Perhaps he's the real Shark Boy. Yeah. Oh shell yeah, brother. Yeah, there's no way that Johnny Gargano is 100% human being. Yeah. He can't be 100% human. There has to be some shark. Like nobody can just have black eyes. Are you kidding me?
You ever heard of Black Eyed Children?
Isn't that group with like it was like the young version of with Fergie and
No,
Will I Am and Apple the App?
that's Black Eyed Peas. No, go look up Black Eyed Children. That's something completely different.
Okay. Well, anyway, that is as good a note as any to end our review of this review of TNA's greatest moments. Will there be a part 2? I don't know. There'll definitely be something next week that won't be new content, but at least we will have Hard to Kill to talk about along with it. So at least that. And then in the coming weeks will be whatever they're doing, their tapings at Las Vegas, Snake Eyes, and whatever else bullshit they have there. So we'll have to talk about Hard to Kill next week. The week after that, we'll probably get to talk about, Moose and his 2 flunkies versus Okada and the Machine Guns. So we should finally get new TNA content coming up, and that'll be nice, I guess. Well, I'm interested to see what will be different, if anything. I'll be interested to see if there's any production changes. I'll be interested to see if there's any sort of personnel changes that we can see that are tangible. So, I guess you could say it's as close to excited as we can get for this kind of stuff. But, looking forward to a new champion Moose. It's going to have to be. We have no choice. But to have a new champion. So yeah, we'll see how the new people, we'll see if Grizzly Young Veterans make a difference. We'll see if, who was that other person that got signed?
Top Dollar, whoop, whoop.
Oh, Jesus Christ. All right. Well, we'll see if Top Dollar makes a difference. We'll see if he can do any, physics defying feats like he did the time when he went over the top rope and almost ended up back in the ring. In one move.
Mike Tenay is a bigger star than half of their current roster.
The Professor. Mike Tenay. Yeah, he ain't coming back. He might do one show, but I don't see him doing a full-time gig anymore.
I could see him doing like a tribute to Don West, and that's really about it, which I'm sure he already did when he accepted their induction in the TNA Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's good enough. Good public appearance. I don't think we need to drag it out any further. No offense. I'm not trying to not see Mike Tenay, but just, don't feel obligated, Mr. Tenay. Please don't.
I'm sure the dude is very happily retired and very pleased and well off doing whatever it is that he's doing right now.
That's right. But, at the same time, if he does end up being able to call Moose's big title win, that'd be a little feather in the cap for Moose. But we take our caps off to you. Thank you very much for joining us live here for the Impact Attack, channelattitude.com.
And to talk and furthermore from Mike Tenay, this might be controversial, but I'd put him and Don West up there with JR and the King as far as teams go. Announced teams go.
Yeah, that's very controversial. That's absolutely very controversial. There's a controversy. We've started a controversy here. But that controversy will lead into our next show, which will be next week at the same time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific, 9:30 p.m. Eastern live. If you've ever been listening after the fact and you've wanted to join in the live conversation, this is 100% the place to be, because there's so many times where there's a lack of content that you guys can actually take over the show if you so choose and get us to kind of go along with your flow. So don't miss that opportunity if you want to be a chat superstar. But thank you to the superstars that have joined us tonight. And you can definitely find us in the future. Brandon, tell them where.
You can find me right now currently on Twitter, or as the kids call it, X, at Transarchustia. Once I get my computer stuff straightened out and once I get my computer fixed or even a new computer, streams will return on twitch.tv/Miss Tia the Transarchist. And I am also on Substack at HMG Brandon.
All right. Yes, look forward to that. We're going to see some retro games. We're going to see all kinds of stuff from Transarchus channel. As for me, you can find me at Opinion Haver on all your favorite social media platforms. You can catch me every Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern live for the Next Level Wrestling Review with Big Ray Hernandez. This week, we are going to feature a guest from Wrestling with Rib Rogers. Of course, Lilas Studios owner and proprietor himself, Von Lilas, will be joining us to talk about all the news and flashbacks and NXTs and everything like that. So definitely don't want to miss that one. It's going to be a fun one. Von Lilas coming back for a second time, and he's grown so much as a producer. The channel has grown with Rip Rogers so much since he's been there, and all the effort he puts in with the clips, the members only content, everything. Like, he's really, if you go back and see how that channel started, and you see where it is now, like, it's just really impressive. And that's all thanks to Von Lilas. So good to talk to an old OVW brother, the hardest chopper in OVW, possibly with the exception of me. But definitely something you don't want to miss. So tune in Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern live, or just catch us on Channel Attitude whenever you get a chance. Speaking of 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern, that's another good time on Sundays to check out The Wreckage, where Jimmy T and myself, and usually Chris Ames, who's on vacation of his own show, we talk about Collision for AEW, and lots of fun insight there. So if you want to join us live for that, then it's always a fun time to beat up AEW, right? Like, everybody loves to do that. We're no different. Only difference is we're not doing it completely out of hand. We are actually reviewing the show and the content of the show. We're not necessarily trying to assassinate Tony Khan's character or judge him as a human or any of the other things that everybody else likes to do that you can get from any random Twitter thread. We're actually trying to be constructive. So join us in our constructive criticisms. Once again, Sundays, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern live. So, that being said, I've already plugged Wrestling with Rib Rogers, which is every Friday at whatever time. Now they've had a concrete time of 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern lately. So that works out for me because I usually like to go live on Twitch after that show's over. So the earlier they get done, the better for me. But they've had a string of great interviews which all came to a screeching halt this past Friday with their most recent guest, Ron DeShane. But before that, they had several great interviews that you're definitely going to want to check out. With the likes of everybody from Mark Henry to Ace Steele to Bobby Fulton to Herb Simmons, who Brandon knows very well. You've got just tons and tons of great guests and interviews to check out. Gerald Briscoe, come on, dude, Gerald Briscoe. You're not watching an interview with Gerald Briscoe. Seriously, former hardcore champion Gerald Briscoe, and probably no other championships.
He won. Hey, he won that in an evening gown match.
That's right. I stole a finish once from. I'll tell this quick story. I stole a finish once from Gerald Briscoe, sort of, because if you remember, well, I'll tell you what I did first and then see if you remember this. So, one day I was backstage and there was supposed to be some like battle royal or a Royal Rumble style battle royal, right? And, Rip walked by and he was like, all right, Vet, you're the brains of this battle royal thing. Give me a finish. And I was like, oh shit. Well, because me and my tag team partner in the Army of Two, we were always putting other teams over. Like, it seemed like we never won a match. So anytime I got the pencil, I'm like, all right, we're going over just to balance this out. Like, if we were always winning and I got the pencil, I'd probably do the opposite. I'd probably put somebody else over. But because we never won, I was like, I gotta make this somewhat credible, right? So, like my tag team partner was a monster. You know what I mean? 6'2", jacked, whatever. So it's like, how can we be doing jobs? I always made sure to do all the jobs and protect him, right? So anyway, my idea was the last two people in the Royal Rumble, it was going to turn into a singles match. Like, that's how it was supposed to go down, right?
It's like a gauntlet for the gold.
Kinda. So basically after the last person gets eliminated, yeah, it turns into a singles match. So what I did was it was me and another guy, and that guy was like, he was the big cat. We called him the big cat. He looked like Goldberg, and he wrestled like Goldberg too, but he was the nicest guy, just a wonderful human being. And so I said, okay, here's what we'll do. You spear me, I'll be knocked out. Then after you spear me, my partner will shit can you from behind, and then he will quietly cover me while I'm knocked out. And then when I wake up, he'll tell me that I won the match. So that was the finish I came up with. And I got it from when Gerald Briscoe covered Crash Holly while he was asleep or whatever that gimmick was. He had the referee come in and he's like telling him quietly count the pin. And then he ends up like, you remember he does that silent celebration. He's like, so I did the same thing. I had my partner, like, I'm knocked out from the spear. My partner comes over quietly, covers me, he wins the battle royal. And then when I come to, I ask him what happened and he says, you won. And he raises my hand and walks me all around the ring and helps me to the back. So
that's actually a great story. That's like the great beginning to a story right there.
Wow. Hey, do you think we ever went anywhere with it? No, we didn't do that. No, we went back to jobbing, but that's fine. It's fine. But that's just a little taste of vet psychology. It's almost like I know what I'm doing out there. Even Brandon was entertained with just the story of it years and years later. So imagine what the people thought in the arena. Imagine what anybody else would have thought. I don't even think that was on TV. I think that was a dark. So, but yeah. But anyway, what was my point?
Check it out.
Oh yeah, I said Gerald Briscoe was on Wrestling with Rogers. Go check it out. So, yeah, dude, amazing stories from all those guys, all those old school guys, and even the contemporary guys like Dave Marquez and stuff, who's on and talking about what's going on with NWA and Championship Wrestling from Hollywood or whatever else he's working on now. Great stories all around. So Wrestling with Rip Rogers, and check out Von Lilas on Next Level this week. And of course, Stevie Richards' wrestling analysis is back with a Becky Lynch versus Nia Jax video. They had a good match on Monday Night Raw. Like I said, Monday Night Raw's been getting better. And so
I just saw that video. Great video. Like the way he breaks it down is absolutely amazing.
Right. And Stevie's had to do a lot of work behind the scenes putting these videos together because he keeps getting copyright claims and, the algorithms and blah, blah, blah. So he's struggled recently with all this stuff right now, and it's robbing the world of, as Ben calls it, a masterclass, Ivy League education in wrestling. This is beneficial for everybody, and, the universe is fucking it up.
Right. And if you look at where Nia Jax is now compared to when she first came back just a few months ago, she's clearly watching Stevie Richards' channel.
Has to be. She's got to be the biggest fan of Stevie Richards ever. So now he makes this video putting her over, and Becky Lynch over, and the match over, and everybody over. And he's still got to worry about it getting taken down. So he's had to do some creative editing and tricks and every trick in the book just to make sure this video can even exist. And it's out there for you, so get it while you can.
Yeah, like even in that video with Nia Jax and Becky Lynch, she even says, like, this is as perfect of a match as you can get. Like, anything I say is just splitting hairs and nitpicking.
Yeah. My favorite part of the match was the punch. Remember the punch?
Dude, like the way he broke that down and explained it, like showed how great, like how much potential Nia Jax has as a great worker if she actually works on the work.
Yeah. That's a big if though. But yes, power of the punch, my favorite part. I actually laughed out loud when that match happened on that part. I just laughed at it. It just looked so funny. But
when he breaks it down and you see and he explains it, it's like, wow, this actually makes a lot of sense. And that explains why this spot was as great as it was.
Well, Stevie Richards is a treasure. He knows what he's doing. I would love to do content like this. But even though I had this idea a long time ago, Stevie Richards beat me to it. So now it's his. But I'm happy to be beaten to the punch on that, pun intended. So, check out Stevie Richards Wrestling Analysis. Check out Stevie Richards Fitness. Check out the Big Fitness Show with Stevie Richards and Big Mike Barons. Check out Stevie Richards Resurrected Tech Channel. Check out everything Stevie Richards is doing. It's amazing. Just all in all, Stevie Richards, Hami Media Group, the Russo brand, channelattitude.com. Check out everything. You're already kind of checking it out, but check it out more if you're not. It's worth your time and your money. So that being said, I think it's time to wrap it. And so for Brandon, I'm the vet, and I don't have a sign-off line.